Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Reds Rundown, hosted by two lifelong Reds fans and journalists. I'm Rob, he's Joe, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Joe, as always, we like to start off with how you doing? We're like 10 days away, 11-ish days away from opening day. It's an exciting day.
And one of the best times of the year. We got March Madness this week, then we got opening day next week, along with some more college basketball next week as well. So we just had NFL free agency. We got some good news in Cincinnati with
We
the
did.
T. Higgins and Jamar Chase signings. So let's keep the good vibes going and hopefully start off the year hot.
Yeah, I was very close to wearing a Bengals jersey, but I didn't want to offend, the Reds fans who are Reds fans but don't like the Bengals. So, very good day for Cincinnati fans in that regard. The Reds, not as much. We'll talk about that today. But today, like I said, we're going to go over the past games from this week. We'll look at the games coming up. This will be our last full week of spring training games, Joe, which is great. We got a player sent back, a player injured, a major player sent down, and a player who changed agents over the week. So some big stuff here for us to go over, but we'll also give you guys our question of the day. Who do you think that 26th man is going to be, Joe? That's going to be the question of the day for the fans. You guys let us know in the comments below or on Twitter, wherever you guys follow us. We love to hear from you. Let us know. Also, as always, if you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot, and we're trying to grow a community of Reds fans. Community of Reds fans where we can talk about Reds all the time. So, yeah, it's good stuff. Let's get into the games this week, Joe. The Reds started off the week doing well. They won 9-3 over the Padres last Monday. We got some big hits. Candy hit his first home run of the spring. Espinal and Matt McLain with doubles. Hunter Green went 4 innings. 2 hits, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. He looked pretty solid. Nothing else really from that one. It was a good game overall. Then the Reds would go on to beat the Rockies 8-5. And that would be their last win of the week. Matt McLain, Stu Fairchild with doubles. Austin Hayes with a triple. Jacob Hurtubise, who has been hitting well, with a double. And then somebody Patelli. Don't know who his name is, but it's okay. He did hit a home run, so good for him. It's first of the spring. Brady Singer with an outstanding outing. 4 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. And the bullpen would go on to do well, except for Sam Moll, Joe, who we will need to kind of watch here. 3 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, and a home run. Not a great time right now for Mr. Moll. He has been on the struggle bus, to say the least. The Reds would lose 4-3 against the Rangers in 9. Jose Trevino with a double, Candy with a double, to kind of get things rolling early in that game after some big hits from Matt McLain, TJ Friedel, and Ellie De La Cruz. Nick Martinez would struggle. 4 innings, 3 runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, and a home run given up. Alexis Diaz would pitch a nice inning, though. Scott Barlow continues to do well. Tony Santillan as well. Reds would still go on to lose, though, 4-3. It would be a 1-1 game going into the 9th inning against the Athletics, and then the Reds would give up 11 runs in the 9th. The combination of Kravitz and Randy Wynn, is it Randy Wynn? Maybe that's the old player. Somebody Wynn would give up 11 runs in 1 inning. It was a nightmare for the Reds. They'd get their only RBI from Jeimer Candelario, who does have 7 so far in spring, which is good to see. The Reds would also lose to the White Sox 7-3. Home run, second of the season from Will Banfield, a name we will talk about here shortly. Graham Ashcraft would struggle a little bit. 2 2/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 3 runs, given up 4 walks, 2 strikeouts, and a home run. Sam Moll again would struggle. 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, a strikeout, and a home run given up. Brent Suter pitched a good inning here, and Emilio Pagan would give up his first run, I believe it was, of the spring. He has had a pretty solid spring despite my disliking of him as a Reds pitcher. The Reds would lose 2-1 against the Diamondbacks. Sammy Stafura with his first home run of the spring. He had a pretty good week. He had 2 hits on Monday as well. Bryce Petty would struggle with walks, giving up 4, but he'd pitch around it, only giving up 1 run with 2 strikeouts. Scott Barlow again having a very nice spring, lowered his ERA to 2.57 in that game. The Royals would beat the Reds 13-7. Old friend Michael Lorenzen getting the start would get the win in this game. Urbaez, Dunn, and Fairchild with doubles each. And Hunter Green would go out. Wasn't perfect, but wasn't bad. 4 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, but 6 strikeouts. Alexis Diaz would have his first major bad outing, I would call it, since coming back. 3 hits, 5 earned runs, 3 walks, and a strikeout. They really left him out there to try to figure it out. Tony Santillan as well would struggle. 2 hits, 2 earned runs as well. Last, the Reds would lose 8-3 to the Mariners, giving them potentially their highest run score that they will have all season in a game. I say that as a joke. But Gavin Lux with a double. Patelli with his second home run of the week and of the spring. And Ibarra with a home run as well. Brady Singer would have another good outing, lowering his ERA to a 2.25. 4 1/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned run on that home run, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. Taylor Rogers would also give up his first run of the spring, 2 strikeouts, 3 hits, 1 earned run. And Ian Jabot would also give up some of the first runs he has seen all year. 1 inning pitch, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, and 2 walks. Was a rough week for them, Joe. Anything stand out to you whatsoever? Anything of note? Anything of concern? Sam Mole is still my biggest concern. I know it's spring training. He's probably working on something, but a 18 ERA is not great.
Yeah, I don't have much. As you know, this stuff kind of bores me with spring training, and I don't know. I'm not reading into too much. There's 1 or 2 takeaways I have. Sam Mole is interesting, but we have enough left-handers that if for some reason he does struggle during the season, I'm not concerned about that part of the bullpen. We're going to talk about injuries and stuff later, so I'll leave that for that point. But I think Alexis Diaz is actually the bigger concern for me. Now, he only had the 1 bad outing, but he's only pitched 3 games in the spring. We know that we have guys who can fill in. We talked about that on our bullpen preview episode if he's not ready to go. But it really does feel like he's not ready to go, and we are lacking that, I guess, top-tier closer. Even if we have those guys step in and be closers, whether that's Rogers or someone else, it's not going to be an elite closer that a lot of teams who are trying to make the playoffs have. So I'm watching him this last week. He has, again, 3 games pitched. He has a 19 ERA. It is because of that game against the Royals that you mentioned, Rob, and I am pretty scared now for the Reds bullpen, not because of Sam Mole. Sam Mole's part of it, but mostly because of that closer spot. Because if you lose that closer spot where Alexis, if he's as bad as he was last year or worse, you have to move different guys around, and then you have to fill in the gaps, and that could be kind of problematic. So that's my big takeaway. The hitters are doing great. Some of the young guys are standing out.
Yep.
Again, I don't think there's anyone that we're not going to talk about later in the show in terms of injuries or being sent back to the A's or whatever might have you that we can cover here. So I'll just say that's the biggest thing for me is the bullpen outside of injuries and other minor things is kind of the biggest concern for me right now with Sam Mole, but mostly with Alexis Diaz.
Yeah, and we will say too, Andrew Abbott did pitch this week. He didn't pitch for the Major League club. He did pitch in a minor league game, so good news for him on that. Hopefully that means that he is starting to get on track to be that 5th starter that we need at the end of the season. I will give a quick shout-out spring breakout game, Joe. Edwin Arroyo and Sal Stewart with big hits. Luis May hit 102 on a strikeout this weekend. And Big Sugar, Zach Maxwell with the save, with a big strikeout at the end of that game as well. This week, like I said, last couple games here, Joe. Sunday will be our last official spring training game. They will play in Dayton on the 25th. We'll talk about that next week. But they got the Guardians tonight. The Angels on the 18th, they have an off day on Wednesday. The Royals, then they'll have a split squad on Friday against the White Sox and the Mariners. They'll get the Padres on Saturday, and then they'll have a getaway day, if you want to call it that, with the Guardians back at home on the 23rd. So some good stuff there. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games left this week, Joe. So good to see them there. We'll talk a little bit about the other things rumbling around this week, but next week's going to be the big show. So I hope you guys are going to be here and ready to go as the season will begin. We'll talk about him in a second. Cooper Bowman sent back, Joe. 3 for 25, I believe, was his final line with the Cincinnati Reds. A weird pick for them. We always felt like it was strange. Felt like they just wanted to take a shot and see what would happen. He is now back with the Athletics. Anything else to really say about this one, Joe?
No, I mean, we said in that when that happened, this is weird. Realistically, it almost never works out for a Rule 5 draft spot. Sometimes you might get like a relief pitcher who just like they don't have enough spots for on a team, and you can get that. But trying to move his position, never had really shown to be a great minor league player. Thought it was weird at the time, and now because you did it, you're out some money, and I think that was a bad call. And I guess good for taking a stab, but it didn't work out, and I think a lot of people could have seen that coming.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to find Josh Hamiltons in the Rule 5 draft very often. So, yeah, you don't need to do it. I don't even know why they still have the Rule 5 draft, to be honest with you. I guess it's maybe just to keep people honest, keep you from stashing prospects for too long. But even still, it's I don't know, it's strange. Either way, we'll get to the bigger news here. We'll do the sent down and reassignments first here, just because it kind of goes back with the Cooper Bowman stuff. Albert Abreu, who's actually had a pretty good spring for him, but getting sent back. Big Sugar, Zach Maxwell, Chase Petty. So that takes him out of the conversation officially for that fifth starter. Not that we really thought he had a great chance, but officially takes him out. Brian Shaw, which Terry Francona had some good words to say about Brian Shaw this week. He's seemingly just trying to pump up a guy who he's known and liked for a long time. It was a surprise by a lot of people to see him actually take the assignment and go to AAA. He could have opted out and tried for another contract. Shows he wants to stay here, which is interesting. He didn't have a terrible spring, but wasn't great either. Lenny Torres is sent down. Alex Young as well was sent down yesterday. But the big one, Joe, reassigned to AAA officially, Will Benson. The Reds have decided already for sure that Billy Willie Benson is not going to be on this team to start the season, Joe. And I will be honest with you, I am shocked. I was so sure the way they were talking about him. He was actually starting to see the ball not too badly over the last weekish. I really thought that they were going to be putting Will Benson out there again. They did not. So I don't know what the heck's going to go on with this outfield anymore, Joe. I really feel like we got Hayes, Friedel, and Fraley, and then we'll see what happens after that. I mean, we both thought Bowman might stay around because they did the Rule 5 draft. We thought then Benson would make the most sense for them to keep around. Spencer Steer is still injured. So do you think they're going to look to try to pick somebody up? Like, what are you feeling? And give me some of your thoughts on Will Benson.
Hallelujah. Rob, I know you weren't on board last year, but I wanted him sent down so much last year. Definitely needed it, not just for the team, but for himself. This is a good move. He had a couple hits in spring training, but he really had tailed off, and I think they kind of gave him this past week to be like, all right, you're hitting pretty well. See if you can keep it up. And then that didn't happen. And now he is, batting 200 in spring training. And it's kind of, against pitchers who a lot of them aren't going to be big league pitchers. That's not good. So send him down, let him work on his swing a little bit more. I do think he can provide a role at some point in this season if he really does take this seriously. He's got very good athleticism, and if he fixes that swing, there is a lot to like about that. The other guys were expected, but this one was more of I thought it would come down to Will Benson and Stu Fairchild at the end for that 26th spot. Obviously, that's going to change now with the injuries, but yeah, I think I said last week, I think it's going to be Fairchild in that spot. They want him to hit left-handed pitching. I think it's a pretty weak last person on your roster, to be honest. But that for where we're at and where we were, it's not bad. I don't know. I think he's going to have a role on this team too, at least, and I think he can be a solid player. I just think that with all these other teams who are competing for championships, I don't think you compete for a championship with this starting lineup, and then also the depth being somewhat of an issue for me because if we're sitting here saying, this close to the season, hey, who's our third catcher? Hey, who's going to be our outfielder who's on the bench? Again, one more injury is going to kill this team. If that's how we're talking right now. So if one more injury, Stu Fairchild's playing real innings and real, that's not what we want to do with this team. He needs to be a platoon guy only against lefties, and if he does that, he can be somewhat successful. But even then, it's a very limited role for someone off the bench. So that's probably going to be the guy. I don't know if I like that, but that's probably going to be the guy.
I don't mind Stu as your 26th. I don't mind him as your fifth outfielder. I don't love him as your fourth outfielder. That's where I have the issue. And right now, as far as I can tell, he's the fourth outfielder, unless if I'm missing something. Like, I know technically Spencer Steer and Friedel and Fraley. Like, I know technically, I guess Jake Fraley is the quote unquote fourth outfielder. But with Steer down, that thrusts him, like you said, like right there. Like, he'll platoon with Jake Fraley most likely, even though Fraley, as we talked about was it last week or the week before? I don't remember. One of those weeks. He actually hit lefties pretty well, to be honest with you, Joe. So, it is strange. I'm sad for Benson. I will say this. If you remember, they did this to him in 2023. And he came back up and had an absolutely outstanding season. Maybe he just needs this as the mental reset. I don't really know. But what I will say is that I'm glad they're doing this. They're not attached to him like David Bell was, like seemingly the front office was when they got him for nothing. And he has all the potential in the world to be a star, Joe. He really does. I mean, there were people ranking him in the top 10 heading into 2024 at his position. I remember, I forget who it was on MLB Network, but somebody like surprise ranked Will Benson at like 8 or something like that in terms of right fielders. Like, he has that sort of potential, but he just, I don't know if he gets in his own head or gets in his own way. I don't know exactly which one it is, but he's getting in the way of something. And so it's just disappointing to see for him because he's a good guy. The team does love him, but you had to cut ties with him at some point, and just sending him down to AAA to figure it out. He'll be back up. Unless if they trade him or, I don't know, somehow their outfield like completely stabilizes, which, let's be honest, that seems entirely unlikely at this point. But if they do, then you won't see him. But we will see him again at some point this spring. He's going to go down AAA. He's going to get regular at-bats. I will say there's a little part of me that wonders if it's just that Francona just doesn't think he has it still. And maybe just kind of sees him as a bust still and has decided that the Will Benson experiment in Cincinnati is over. I think that there is a very real possibility that that is the case, Joe. So I'll give you one more spot if you want to say anything about Benson. We'll move on to the injury, but that was my last thought there because it is one that I think is very much in consideration because he has been the hardest on Will Benson apparently of anybody, and I know things were awkward apparently going into spring training with Francona in Cincinnati and Benson back, and I wonder if that maybe stressed him out or I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think Francona knew that Benson, obviously from his time in Cleveland, and decided he didn't want him here. And maybe he saw that 2023 was a fluke. Because that you're right, he did have a good 2023 season,
Mm-hmm.
but everything else in his pro career is kind of like, I don't know, 2022 in Cleveland. So I think maybe that was good that we brought in some fresh eyes to fix what was one of our biggest problems last year, Will Benson starting so many games. Um, and that'll be good. I think, like I said, this is like partially like I'm happy for the Reds because they're going to put out their best roster they can, at least from a manager's perspective, right? The front office could do better getting players on the team. I also think this is good for him too. He needs to figure it out. I don't know what the success rate on, 26-year-old guys are going to be 27 next month, going down to spring training after only hitting, you know, less than 200 in two of his three major league seasons. Obviously, one was limited with Cleveland. But this is like you can't figure it out at the major league level and cost the team wins. And this will be good because it'll take the pressure off of him. If he does bad in Louisville, obviously they want to win games, but it's not like it's minor league baseball. Their biggest thing is to develop these players, and if he can get back, that'd be great. I'd watch out for him, as you said, Rob, to be back up at some point this year with injuries, with anything else. We know the Reds don't always like to make moves during the season, but also, if you do get into a playoff series, like he could be a pinch runner for you. He can do some
Hmm.
different things. That's something to watch out for here. So again, best of both worlds for him and for the team, I think, is the good thing here.
Yeah, we can only hope. We can only hope. And we wish nothing but the best for Will Benson because he is a good dude. The team loves him. So we'll say that. The biggest news, though, Tyler Stevenson with an oblique injury. They thought it was a back injury. They went and looked, which oblique is technically partially the back as well, but they went and looked, and there was no structural damage from what I saw, Joe. And that leaves you with Austin Wynns or Will Banfield. There are some other options we'll talk about here in a second as well, but Jose Trevino took a ball the very next day off the thumb, and, luckily is fine. Apparently, they say they're just going to go day to day and see how he does, but they fully expect him to be ready for next week. I doubt he sees any more spring training games. I think it'll be pretty much Banfield and Wins every single game from here on out because I just don't think they can't risk Trevino getting hurt again. If anything, maybe they just put him in a DH so he can still see some pitching this week. But I would not have him catching, to be honest with you. He's a vet. He doesn't need it. But oblique injuries are annoying, and we are back to Stevenson being hurt once again, Joe. They don't think he's going to miss much time. I will say that. It sounded like they expected him to only be out for a few days. I think they technically have to designate him for 10 days, potentially, Joe, to start the season. But if that's the worst case scenario, that oblique injury heals and he's fine, then great. Who cares? Trevino and whoever we end up deciding will be the third catcher, second catcher, technically, will be good enough and they'll be fine. Stevenson is always going to be injured. He will never have a full season where he plays every game, but as a catcher, he's always going to miss games anyways, right? He's never going to play 162 games. So if he plays 130, 125 games still this season, and he just misses a chunk of them at the beginning, then I don't care personally. But I am worried because oblique injuries, especially for a catcher, can be nagging, and that would be pretty awful at this point.
Yeah, and it's not like a position where Spencer Steer moves into the DH because of his injury. Obviously, we
Yep.
don't have the DH spot open anymore, but like if it's catcher, there's not many good catchers out there. Jose Trevino is a fine backup catcher, but if we have to play him for an extended time, it could get bad. And I don't like that because I do think he's a very good backup catcher and can take these short stints.
Yep.
But you're right, obliques are tough for catchers. You're bending down every play. You have to turn and fire, throw the ball at second base. That's
Yep.
that's not easy. Along with your hitting duties, where you're trying to obviously swing through the ball and follow through. That's not easy either. So I like that we have more clarity with Terry Francona, who said, "Yeah, like I'm not going to push him to come back. Basically, it doesn't seem like it's long term, but he's unlikely to be ready for opening day." This is a little bit different than last year, where it seems like we got one injury update, and then that next week it would completely change and be something completely different. So I appreciate that at least. Yeah, this is another big hit to this team. If it does linger, they should be looking at other options if they think this is a possibility. But that's going to take a lot of communication from the coaching staff and the front office and the training staff to kind of figure out, hey, is this something where he's going to come back in 2 weeks and then you're injure it? Is it's going to linger all season, but he can play through it and play well? If you want to make the playoffs, you know, I think you could still make it with Trevino as your catcher, but you also have to factor in that there's other players being injured too. So you have to find ways to upgrade in any way you can if this does linger. It seems like he's going to be fine. But man, did I freak out when I saw Trevino get hurt
Oh
too? I was like, oh
gosh,
shoot,
yeah.
Austin Wins, baby, you're up. Let's see it.
I mean, hey, the man like basically led the team in doubles for like weeks. It was like he had like every hit he had last season was a double. I was shocked. I thought he would never
he,
come back. So
what did he technically lead the team in batting average last year? But he only had 19 at bats. So hey, there
yeah,
we go, 368 batting. Let's throw him back in there. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like, hey. Again, we said like this team, we're a small market team. Injuries can really derail the season. Having two already is not great. I'm not freaking out as much as last year with like Matt McClain, although we kind of thought Matt McClain would be back too. So that we'll see what happens here.
That's
But
different.
yeah,
That
just
is different, I will say. That one was
right.
a you had to have surgery, shoulder injury. This is an
Well,
oblique, so he
right.
had the
This is
oblique
different,
later
but
in the
we
season, but
no. I'm saying just with the having the injury in spring training and then things changing on us
oh well, yeah,
with
that's
their
true
things,
too.
and then we have like it's not just that, but it's like hey, there are two injuries now with starters. We have Spencer Steer and we have Tyler Stevenson. So now it's like we're getting close to the panic button already. I'm not quite there because Stevenson seems minor, but that's just we're keeping it on the desk. We're keeping it open.
We just can't have another. We just can't have another May like we had last year. That's just survive each month and then get healthy for the run at the end. That's kind of where I'm at right now. But we'll move on to options. So Austin Wynn seems pretty likely to be the second guy. The problem is if Trevino gets hurt, what happens after that? So right now they got Will Banfield, who apparently has some power, but that's about it. He hasn't hit for anything else. So what I did, Joe, is I went and looked, and there are some free agents who are available. Now, I will say there's one name I'm going to mention who is not officially on the depth chart of the team that he is currently playing for, which means there's a chance that he will get reassigned or cut, and the Reds could potentially take a look at him. The names are Andrew Knapp, who has plenty of experience, would be fine to come in. He's a horrible bat, but he's a very good defensive catcher. You would be fine with having him there. Yasmani Grandal could end his career in Cincinnati, which would be pretty interesting considering top prospect, got traded in the Matt Latos deal, and finds his way back to Cincinnati to help us out. That'd be cool. James McCann is by far and away the best catcher still available, but he is going to be 35 soon, Joe. And he has no offers. Right now, he made $10 million last year, which is wild. Absolutely wild. Then the last name I'm going to mention, old friend Luke Maley. He is technically, according to Spot Track, available, but we saw him on the Royals. He just played like yesterday, I think. So maybe they're just anticipating him getting cut. You could always go Kurt Casale as well. I think he's technically available if you want to bring back people who are familiar with this staff, right? I don't hate those ideas, especially if they're willing to go play in AAA until they need to be called back up. But it feels like Wins will be the third guy for sure. But should Trevino get hurt, those are your options, Joe. What are you feeling? Do you stick with Banfield? I personally would honestly just try to get Luke Maley back if they had to go down to it, just because he's at least a very good defensive catcher and he knows this pitching staff for the most part. He may have even caught, depending on when he got signed, he may have caught Brady Singer in a couple bullpens, considering he's on the Royals. So that's always a possibility. But where are you at with this? What are you feeling? I don't know. Give me the down low.
Yeah, I think Luke Maley is the answer here. I don't think he'll make the Royals opening day roster. I could be wrong,
No.
but they obviously have a stalwart, Salvador Perez, who now moves around a little bit, but they, I don't think they need him, and I think he could come back because he does have familiarity with us playing here the last two seasons, but he also played with Terry Francona in Cleveland in
That's true too.
2022. It's we talked about with Trevino when you signed him. Like, if you can get anything out of a catcher, backup catcher offensively, you take it because they're just not expected to play every day. He has some seasons in the past where he had positive WAR, which is not always the thing for backup catchers. So, zero point 0.8 in 2023 for us, zero point 0.7 in 2022 for Terry Francona and those Cleveland Guardians. So that would be where I go for a cheap option. If you really do think that Stevenson is like, hey, he'll be out a week or two, then I think you just don't make a move.
Yeah, I agree. If he's going to be out long term, I would actually like to see the Reds go after McCann at that point. If they are worried that he's going to be out for even a good portion of the season, I would say just go do it. You could probably sign him for nothing. I'm sure he would come in. He's a much better bat than any of the other options. He's actually a pretty good player, and God forbid you have to trade him at the deadline because Stevenson's back and you don't want to have three, solid catchers on your team. I still think you would keep Trevino. He's younger, and I like having a defensive option as your number two. So, yeah, I mean, they've got the money. They could easily go out and get him. I think he would sign for even a league minimum deal just to get back out there and show that he still got it at least a little bit. So, yeah, that's really about it for catcher. We'll see. Hopefully, Tyler Stevenson will be fine. Hopefully, we'll see him back, a couple days after opening day. But we will see. Last thing we're going to talk about is Matt McLain changed his agents. Joe, he is no longer with the mean man. He is no longer with good old Scott Boras, the man who is, I think, costing his players a lot. And I think young guys are seeing this. And I think that's why they're starting to go away from him, is he's so unwilling to deal with certain teams and all this other stuff. It makes me hopeful for Matt McLain moving forward, Joe. I know you were excited. You texted me about this specifically, which is, to me, showing your interest, your excitement for this possibility for the Cincinnati Reds and Matt McLain.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of excitement. It's a little bit of disappointment as well. This, to me, locks in that McLain is the long-term guy for the Reds, and Ellie is just not. We'll see if he changes agents. There's still a chance. We saw the Bengals get 2 stars signed. Maybe times are changing. I just think the Reds ownership group is a step behind the Bengals, and the Bengals are 50 steps behind everyone else. So this is a good thing to possibly get a long-term deal done. I think he could be a guy that is the face of the franchise, and much like Joey Votto was for so long. I would love to see him more before investing in him, but I also would probably sign him right now. He just changed agents. Once you get the agent, let's get this thing rolling, because the value, as we talked about last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, is only going to go up from here. So get him in the negotiating room, get a contract signed. You might feel like you're paying too much, but if we really think he can be as good as we think he can be, and I think Rob and I both you think he can be a top 20 player in Major League Baseball, position player in Major League Baseball, get it done now.
I mean, I see no reason not to. He's coming off of an injury. He is quite literally not going to get cheaper than he is now. Like, will 100% not be, because I think even if he hits 260, 275 this season, Joe, I think he's going to be fine. I also don't think he's going to get hurt. Like, that injury was kind of weird. He was diving back into the base. I saw it happen to a kid. I think I talked about it last year. This happened to one of the kids that I know that I was coaching. He was just diving back into the base, and he kind of just moved his arm incorrectly when he was diving back in, and he tore his labrum and had to go get surgery. So this is a very big thing. It's very real. It's kind of a fluky injury, to be honest with you, and I'm sure the oblique probably was because he was probably trying really hard to come back for the end of the season and probably just overdid it, because you have to compensate, once you're injured and all that stuff. So I'm fine with this. I would totally lock him up right now. If the Reds can learn anything from the Bengals, the more you wait, the more expensive it's going to be. So just do it. If you think he's healthy, that's the big thing for me. If they don't think he's going to be able to stay healthy, then don't do it. But if you think he's going to be healthy, just buy out an extra year or two of arbitration and just go with it. Lock him in for 6 or 7 years, and then we can be done with it. I mean, they already did it for Hunter Green. That contract is looking like a banger contract for the Reds right now. I see no reason not to. McLain switched agents for a reason. I think he wants to be here. I think Boras didn't want him to be here. I don't know. You connect. You do the math, right? 1 + 1 = 2 most of the time. So McLain, new agent. Reds need to sign a guy to a long-term deal. Ellie and Matt McLain love playing together. If you can get them both to be here for the long term, at least until they're 29 or something like that, or 30, right? And then they can get one more big contract. Then go ahead and do it. Take a chance. What's the worst that happens? McLain is, I don't know, like I said, a slightly above league average hitter. Great. That's fine. The Reds have almost none of those. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with this. I was very excited as well when I saw that. So, I'm hopeful. Hopeful, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful. We'll see. Again, it's very hopeful. It's still very early, and if you're a small market team, you have to take these risks. Like with big market teams, your risks is, hey, we're going to give this guy a top of the market contract. We may be seen as fools in a couple of years because we ended up paying a guy who ended up sucking. For small market teams, it's, hey, we need to take a chance on our young guys. And we're probably going to give them a very good deal in terms of it's above what they've produced so far. But if we can get them locked up to stay here, that is great. And you're going to miss. You're going to miss a lot on these. And I think like it doesn't matter how good the player ends up being. There'll be debates about whether it was worth it or not. We saw that with Joey Votto all those years.
Oh, that was
Probably
awful.
for the most part worth it. But I do think that if you're going to sign a guy like that to that many years, you probably should have surrounded him with more talent too. And they never did. So there is some talking points with that. But this is the risk you have to take. It's what the Braves did. We talk about that all the time. I love the way they operate, and they have gotten a World Series out of it. They've been very competitive, and yes, their players have been injured, even some of the guys they've signed long term. But they found ways to supplement them with other pieces to compete. And yes, they are a bigger market than we are, but we can take that lesson from them and sign these young guys and lock them up, and that would be very nice to do that now and not have to worry about it like the Bengals did, as you said.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for us, Joe. I couldn't agree more. Do you have any words of wisdom as well? I'm going to throw it back at you. You got a 10-second break here. I'm talking. Okay, now it's back to you. So, what you got? Words of wisdom.
Cool. All right, yeah, we got a couple of news and notes here. We have JD Martinez rumors came in. He wasn't the greatest for the Mets last year, but if you would have said that someone would play 120 games to hit 235 for the Reds last year, I would have said, I'll sign me up, man. So don't know how that's a big rumor right now, apparently, but I don't know how he fits with us having Spencer Steer as DH. Does it mean Spencer Steer moves to first base and JD Martinez DHs? Does it mean that that's another outfielder we use? I don't want to use him in the outfield very much,
He doesn't
to be
want to be
honest.
used in the outfield.
No, but I guess in desperation, maybe we could. So that's something to watch out for here as guys we can add. There's also Terry Francona said this week Ellie is going to bat third. Which is
I said that. Remember?
Yeah, It's going to be so that means
Friedel.
Basically, the lineup is Friedel, McLean, Ellie, and then probably Austin Hayes, especially with other injuries like Spencer Steer and Stevenson. We have Great American Ballpark was rated as the third worst stadium in the country by USA Today. Now there are some things I would change about Great American Ballpark. I don't want to take too much time because this is, obviously news and notes section, but the food could be better. I do like that they have some of the local flavor coming in the last couple of years with Frisch's and Skyline and everything. The food could be better. I think the upgrades they made are incredible. I've been to 16, 17 MLB stadiums. It is not third worst that I've seen. And especially I've been to like Tampa Bay. I mean, let's be honest. And then, I think that's kind of a bad rating. And then the last thing, Rob, last year we had DJ Shaq. Now we have Snoop Dogg coming as a concert this season in the summer. So we know those games sell out pretty fast. So if the Reds are winning, that could be a very hot ticket this summer.
Oh, to say the least. Yeah, I'm excited about all that stuff. If Martinez comes in, he only is going to elevate this team most likely. So great for that. I had a feeling they might bat Ellie third, dude. I really did. You're still getting him there early. I love that top four, by the way. Friedel, McLean, Ellie, and Austin Hayes sound very fun to me. I have a very distinct feeling that Austin Hayes may, if he's healthy, drive in over 100 runs this season. I mean, you got three very fast guys in front of him. He's going to be, I think, I'm excited for that. And then Snoop Dogg, man. Yeah, why not? That'll be great. I might consider going to that game, honestly, just because why not? It feels like he's almost doing like farewell tours. He's like doing stuff all over the place. So, and I think did he release something new soonish, lately-ish? I don't know. I don't follow him that much, but I would be, be interested in seeing him. Last thing I will say, I've also been to maybe 13 stadiums, something like that. Is Great American Ballpark going to be able to be up there with the Yankee or Fenway or Wrigley? No. Actually, I kind of like it a little bit more than Wrigley in some ways, to be honest with you. Wrigley's just kind of run down. It's great, but it's kind of run down. But, like, if you're going to tell me that, like, freaking the White Sox Stadium, whatever it's named now, is better than the Red Stadium, wrong. Freaking Rays Stadium, no. Wherever the hell Oakland's going to play, no. Yeah. Like, come on, man. Like, it's a beautiful stadium. Like, unbiasedly, a lot of people go there and love it. I see posts all the time of people who are like, yeah, I came to Cincinnati for a Reds game and was shocked at how beautiful the stadium is. It's a really nice place. I think the food options are actually pretty good, personally. I mean, they've really upgraded from where it used to be. There are a ton of local flavors now. There's that area all over on the first base side where they've got a lot of different new foods. I I don't know. I personally have enjoyed it. I think they've got a lot of good options. But yeah, I didn't want to say too much on this, but I was shocked when I saw that rating as well. I was like, I think these people just don't like Cincinnati. There's no other reason why it should be ranked. If it's not top 10, fine, but I don't know. It's at least probably one of my top 7 that I've been to, and I've been to most of the classic ones. Baltimore's my favorite, by the way, with Fenway right behind it. But even Fenway's run down now. I haven't been to Fenway in over 10 years. So
Yeah, it's for me. It's very much. I would say biasedly, it's probably top 5 for me out of the 17 I've seen. I would say that a lot of the ones that get a lot of recognition, like Wrigley, it's not enjoyable to watch a game there. It's cool to see the history.
mhm.
I did love Fenway. If you want to see history, go to Fenway. That's so much
Yeah,
cooler in my
Fenway's way
opinion.
better.
But I like Camden Yards is my favorite as well. Camden and then Fenway are the top 2, and then Reds are right behind it. Yeah, I don't really understand that and what they were basing it off of, to be honest. But the food service, I like the options they have. But you can buy a hot dog at the Reds game and get like this big of a. They need to fix that stuff.
That
Like,
I agree
and
with.
some of it's like the dollar hot dogs. Like, sure, you can do that, but like if you buy a hot dog and pay money for it, and that's what you get, that needs to improve. And a lot of the pricing can be fixed too. We're a small market team. We're small market fans. I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay that much for a beer. But yeah, that was shocking to me. And I think something I'm going to do once we get to the summer months is especially because I'm going to go to more stadiums this offseason, or this offseason for me with writing all the content about NFL draft and college football, basketball, is I'm gonna do a stadium rankings of all the places I've been. It's gonna be
Yeah,
total. It's gonna be totally biased. It's gonna be
that's
great. I'm gonna
fine.
mark like why I like this spot. I'm gonna say, hey, I went to the Pirate Stadium, but I went to the old Pirate Stadium, so I got to go to the new Pirate Stadium. It's gonna be fun. So I thought that was just a weird thing to have them third last when, as you said, Rob, I've been to the Ray Stadium. It was cool that was inside.
Yep.
I don't know. It was
Dude,
fine. It
like
was it was it was
there's
bottom tier, but it was fine.
so many stadiums that are just worse. I mean, even Toronto Stadium, from what I've heard, is not great. Like, I know some people really like it, others don't. Like, I don't know. I mean, is it gonna be whatever new Minute Maid Park's name is? No. Is it gonna have that kind of like cool aesthetic to it? You know, even the Pirate Stadium, I think, is fantastic, honestly. But I mean, I've been to Detroit multiple times. Guys, Detroit's fine, but Cleveland's fine. But those are not better than Cincinnati. Like, unbiasedly, like they're just not. Like, I'm sorry.
Dodger Stadium. Dodger
Haven't been to
Stadium has a
Dodger,
lot of
but
issues. I haven't either, but I've heard that you can only like go to your section. You can't walk around the stadium. You got that big parking lot outside of it. Like we're just saying it's a good stadium because of the Dodgers. Until I'll hold reservations
I
until
will
I go
agree
see
with
it.
you. I think it's
But
actually a very plain stadium, personally.
right,
But
so I'll hold reservations, but I'm pressing X to doubt on that it's like that's the third worst stadium, and there's other ones that we're just kind of giving credence to because of oh well history, and that does play a part. I love baseball. I romanticize about baseball all the time, but that was shocking to me. And there are some Reds fans who agree with it because of like food service and stuff like that, and maybe because this stadium is 25 years old now, basically. But
I think it looks
it's
great.
not third worst. You could say bottom half of the league, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, maybe, but third worst is crazy.
I
So
think it
I
looks
had to get that
better
in
than
there
it
so
did
there's
when
no
they first did it,
yeah, it
honestly.
does. They
But
need to. They need to. You know how they just die? It's St. Patty's Day when we're recording this. Again, I don't want to take too much time with our BSing, but they dye the river green and say for St. Patrick's Day in Chicago. Maybe we just need to start dyeing the Ohio River blue so it looks like really pristine and everything instead of you look out there and it's a brown river. Maybe that could be something we'll talk about, Rob. We'll just start buying some dye and throwing it in the river.
dude, I think it's time. We'll go out, get a boat. You know, apparently the stuff they use to dye the river green is orange, actually. The dye is. So, yeah, I saw a picture of it yesterday. Apparently it is an orange dye that when mixed, the chemicals make it green in the water. So, we'll figure out what color we need to do to make it blue. But hey, let's crystallize the Ohio River so that the Red Stadium looks good. Helps the environment potentially, and it would help, the Cincinnati and Covington area to draw even more people there. Guys, we love Cincinnati. We're obviously biased, so it's fine. But that is going to wrap it up for us on this episode. We appreciate you guys watching. We are about 1 week away from opening day, so we hope you're as excited as we are. But yeah, that'll do it for us. So with that, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.